Hey everyone, welcome along. Bits and Bobs with you after our live show at the Ambassador Theatre in Dublin 1 last night. Sincere thanks to the 600 odd people who came. It was much appreciated. And thanks also to Conor McKibbin, who's here in studio. Hello, Conor.
Hi, Joe.
Ronan Mullen, hello.
Hi, Joe.
Also fresh from the Ambassador last night. You can email in indosportpodcast@independent.ie. Lots of you have been doing that. We just been talking all things Ireland's call again, but we won't.
We'll come back.
That's all we ever talk about in the sports department.
I would like to know, and it's not that I'm kind of jealous that everyone else had a night out last night that I wasn't at, but like surely if 600 people can go to the Olympia or to the Ambassador to listen to us.
What was on at the Olympia?
To listen to people talk about rugby, surely bits and bobs. There's a, like I weep for the Irish nation if the two Johnnies can sell out the O2 and we can't.
We're gonna manifest this into existence because me and Joe have been talking about. To be fair, I'm not going to throw Joe under the bus. I have been talking about a live bits and bobs at the end of the year.
Yeah.
In the National Concert Hall.
Yeah.
In the most incongruous venue possible for bits and bobs. So as divine a venue as we can find is where we're going to do our end of year bits and bobs.
Can
we just get a sense in the emails if anyone would actually come to that?
Would you like to?
Or is it going to be a podcast ending endeavour?
Would you like to see us denigrate the National Concert Hall?
Yeah. We'll call them expressions of interest.
I am up for doing a live bits and bobs. I think that could be a lot of fun.
That sounds like a legally binding contract to me.
I would prefer, though, National Concert Hall idea notwithstanding, more of a summertime evening.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
With some beers on stage and an outdoor hue. A rooftop.
Rooftop.
Perhaps. And just with,
Yeah.
I don't need the masses. I don't need 600 people. I just think 100 people in some kind of a rooftop or outdoor venue with some beers, the sun setting.
See,
Andy Dufresne sipping a beer on the rooftop in Shawshank Redemption. That would be nice, I think.
Yeah.
I take that point.
Okay.
I'm going to raise you the RT Concert Orchestra playing Paul Donegan's theme tune on
that'd be nice
at the National Concert Hall. But let's see.
Okay. But yes, a sincere thanks to everybody last night. I did. It doesn't make the cut. It's not going out on podcast. I did stand up in front of everyone at the start just to say, we're a young podcast. This is an amazing 3-4 months. But then it devolved into a TED Talk, and I just had to reverse out of it.
How long? I don't think we're getting away with that anymore. We're just a little podcast, It was like David O'Leary with the Leeds team. He kept talking about how young they were.
Babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're at 3 months and change.
A little podcast that could
3 months and change.
Yeah.
Come on. Sue, Irish team named for Ireland, England on Saturday. Joe McCarthy injury means there was not a huge decision to be made around Tadhg Beirne 6, Tadhg Beirne second row. What are we doing? So it's Porter, Kelleher, Bealham, James Ryan and Tadhg Beirne second row. So Tadhg Beirne second row. And then Ryan Baird gets the nod at 6 with Doris and Van der Fleer. Prendergast is in at 10. And then it's pretty familiar. Gibson Park, Aki and Ringrose. And for all the talk of different players coming in and fitness woes, it's very familiar with James Lowe, Mac Hansen and Hugo Keenan at 15 is how they line up. Jack Crowley is on the bench, as is Robbie Henshaw. Michael Cheika, by the way, is leaving Leicester at the end of the season, just to mention that in rugby terms. He's opting not to extend. They wanted him to stay, but he's decided, no, I'm going. So Ireland, England on Saturday. We talk about that game in a bit more detail with Martin Johnson, Keith Wood, Rory O'Connor, Sinead Kassan in a podcast in your feed somewhere today. We therefore missed Champions League Match Day 8. A television extravaganza was the promise, drama. This whole thing, which has been bubbling away, is about to really catch fire. Did it deliver? You sat and watched it? Were you watching the goals show? Was it like, there's been a goal here, there's been a goal there? It's unbelievable. I've seen a video of the Aston Villa players, for instance, watching their fitness coach's phone after they had beaten Celtic 4-2 to see if they made the top 8 and therefore skipped the next round or not, and they did, and all of that stuff was going on. That's the condensed version. Was the reality any good?
No, well, the problem is the condensed version is like if you widen the lens there, you're still left with a very condensed version because, like obviously when Bruges went 1-0 up against Manchester City and the thing that we've been nearly sort of teeing up now for about a month, the notion that Manchester City might actually be eliminated, that became a live possibility. But once they got the 2 goals back, that was more or less that.
And it only happened after an hour. That sounds juicy to me.
Yeah, I know, but the problem was there's so many permutations that as soon as somebody scored a goal, there was this kind of pause, and like there's about 11 other teams that are then affected, by that expected result, and like I think there was almost too many permutations for it to be that compelling, if you know what I mean. It will never. Because there's so many teams going through, and then some of them, expected to go through automatically, and some go into a playoff, and some people will be happy to get into a playoff, and other teams aren't. Like it wasn't any one thing, and so you were finding it hard to find what the thread of the story was, other than whichever team you kind of wanted to win. So no, I don't think it didn't really do what it kind of teed itself up to do, and I think it was just because it was nearly too multifaceted.
Okay. Lax focus would be your
I think so. Yeah,
notes.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the most interesting storyline out of this first phase of the Champions League that Man City almost didn't qualify but actually did in the end?
Doesn't sound great.
You know what I mean? Like Celtic are in, and they probably would have struggled in the old format to get out of a 4-team group. That is cool. You see Lille like hanging with the big boys. I think they're number 7 in that big table, which is pretty impressive considering. Yeah. But like. Yeah, I don't think, was it last year Man United finished bottom of their group? Like the group phase wasn't a dead duck, like stuff was happening in those groups, but I don't know, people are just kind of willing this to be a success. Jamie Carragher keeps telling me how amazing this new format is, but like we're down to the usual movers and shakers. It doesn't really matter how you get
I think you have to think about it too much as well. Like you could definitely make an argument that it's really good and really exciting, like Jamie Carragher does, but you need to nearly be constantly tracking it. And all any of us wanted was to kind of switch on the television on a Tuesday or Wednesday and be told this is going to be the exciting bit. But we were kind of building up, and then when we got to the exciting bit, it wasn't actually that exciting.
Okay. Villa, by the way, we mentioned did beat Celtic 4-2. They were very good. There are times where Villa, when they're on and the crowd is up, cut teams open, and they were impressive. So they're through to the last 16. Celtic, for their part, did come from 2-0 down to go 2-2, courtesy of Adam Idah. And you scoffed last week when he claimed the goal and said, maybe this gets me going on a run.
Will scoffed. I was all behind it. I said he should have claimed it all day long.
So 2 very good goals, Adam Idah. The first one... kind of cat-like reaction, foot high in the air, adjusts body beautifully to a deflected ball. Very agile for a man of his size, and finishes well. And even commentator says, God, he took that well, And second goal, very sharp movement. Now, ball squared across for, it's good. It's a lovely...
The move is great for that one.
But yeah, ball across the goal, and he taps into an empty net. But he's sharp. His movement's sharp. I remember being at a show with John O'Shea before, a year ago. It's hard to remember these things. Adam Idah was out injured at that stage for 10 months. And O'Shea was kind of chatting backstage. And we were all, was kind of commiserating when how things weren't going great. Stephen Kenny a touch unlucky, and Idah's been injured as well. And O'Shea was effusive about Idah. He's borderline, don't want to quote him verbatim, but intimating he's the one.
We forget how young he is as well. And like into that boat as well, topically enough, falls Troy Parrott. They play against Ferencváros now, Robbie Keane's team. And I think, particularly with forward players, we have so few of them that come through at a high level that when they start at a good club, and maybe this will happen to Evan Ferguson as well, that, when Troy Parrott didn't make it at Spurs, it was nearly like, it's bursting our balloon, the idea that we're going to have a, top 6 Premier League striker. But, some of them get injured and they go off and develop at a different rate, and they come back and they just have a different route back into it. And far better for Adam Idah to be playing Champions League football and scoring goals. Yeah. Or Troy Parrott, I know, like going to the Dutch league maybe wouldn't be the sort of... It's a fair pivot, really, from where we kind of saw him going. But if he's playing there and he's scoring goals and he's playing at a high level, that's surely the way forward.
Well, nice segue for me. So Adam Idah doing great things in the Champions League is no small thing from an Irish point of view. Dan McDonnell is over in Budapest. We'll talk to Dan tomorrow after this game has happened. So Ferencváros play Troy Parrott's AZ Alkmaar. Troy Parrott's a confident young man.
I saw yeah. Who do you think is better, Troy Parrott or Troy Parrott?
Oh... What do you make of these videos?
I saw the Shay Given one the other day. It was good.
Was it? I'm not sure how I feel about them. So people have seen this. It's whichever footballer happens to have a camera stuck in their face, they have to decide between 2 competing players who's better. And a lot of the time, they're one of the players, or it gets to that point. So Troy Parrott backed himself against everybody, including Jamie Vardy, thought about it, but yeah, no, Troy Parrott's better. Solanke, definitely Troy Parrott, Spurs. Taking my jersey. Only Isak stopped him in his tracks. And like, I have a bit of developing to do. Like, better for now was the intimation.
I think I want my strikers like that. But like of all the sort of confident strikers we've ever had, like Robbie Keane is the obvious one there as well. You're just like absolutely irrepressible that way. Yeah? Yeah. I think you need your strikers overconfident rather.
Troy Parrott will steal a goal from Nolan and not think about it.
Yeah,
we have quite a variety of forwards, and not in terms of number, but in terms of profile. Like, they're not. You wouldn't put them all in the same basket necessarily, would you? Like Idah, when Stephen Kenny had foreseen him to be a fundamental part of his team and was for the under-21s, he was a focal point. He'll get the team up the pitch, something to play off. His first goal yesterday was, as you alluded to, agility for the body movement, but also the cuteness and instinct to conceive that and then do it is easier said than done. I thought I was just really impressed with that goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's why the Ferguson one is so alluring, is that, you know, you can probably play Parrott off him, or you can probably play Idah off him, but
and Smadix as well.
Ferguson is the 9, you know, he's the shearer. He's the one, I think, that because there's only ever one of him in a team, if he plays for a top team, that's a huge sign of what he is. He's the guy you're kind of hanging the development of your really good team on. So I'd say, like, not to go off on a tangent, but that's the transfer window closes next Monday, and that's a huge one from our point of view, I think.
One of the reasons Dan went over to this game is Troy Parrott, AZ Alkmaar against Robbie Keane's Ferencváros, so it kind of writes itself. And Ferencváros are on the cusp of elimination. They need a result, and maybe by the time you've listened to this, you'll know how it all panned out. But also in the press conference to ask Robbie Keane about what's been a strange couple of months in his life off the pitch, where he's been subject to huge criticism by any number of people for his time in Israel, his with the exception of the Rio Ferdinand press conference, general silence on the issue, albeit his wife Claudine has been defending him vociferously against Sinn Féin and any other criticism on social media. So Keane was asked about these issues. Dan was asking him in the press conference. He said things like, "To make clear, I resigned my post from Maccabi." He does make that clear. Obviously not quickly enough for lots of people, or shouldn't have gone there in the first place, but he did resign. He had another year in his contract. And then he reiterated his opinion that, quote, "Football and politics should be separated. I'm a football person, always have been. So that's the one thing I've always focused on, and I've never really got into that side and never will." As is his right, and it's not in some ways an unreasonable position, but it's also a position that other people think just isn't good enough when it's something like what happened in Gaza over the last 18 months. He must have said it several times. Thankfully, for everybody's sake, it's finished. Nobody wants to see a war. I mean, he underlined this point many, many times. He took no, psychotic pleasure in what was happening, over the last couple of months, we should emphasise. And he couldn't be at pains to say more, that he was happy things had reached a settlement of sorts. And then he talked more generally about his career. "I'm not scared to coach abroad. I think that's the problem with some coaches. They're scared to get out of their comfort zone." He cited Graham Potter and Roy Hodgson as examples of that. Talked about wanting to be a coach for 20 years. Don't need to rush it. You don't have to look for the first job quickly and be desperate. So he's playing the long game here with his travels. And he did, by the way, pay kind of homage to Troy Parrott. Similar background to me, similar player. Takes balls to go and play abroad. So he was effusive about Parrott as well. And that was kind of the gist of it. That's kind of where he is on this situation. I don't think he's going to win over anybody who took a dim view of it in the first place.
No, it's yeah. The problem with what Robbie Keane is saying there is that, like, I believe him that he didn't intend any sort of political statement or political action by managing in Israel in the first place and then continuing to live there and work there. But the problem is that, in as much as he doesn't want sport and politics to mix, they are inherently mixed at all times, and you don't get to say that they're not. Like, you don't get to make that decision. So even if it wasn't of his own making, staying there was in some ways a sort of a political statement, and that's the thing that people have a problem with.
Gavin Comiskey, by the way, pointed out, I hadn't realised just how close, Robbie Keane's like, "Oh my God, stop." Ferencváros incredibly close, obviously, with the Viktor Orban government in many ways, which is no longer, it's not considered a democracy anymore by the EU. You know, just over the last 10 years, there wasn't like a revolution. It was just a quiet, we're going to kind of move the judiciary that way. We're going to get rid of all those civil servants. We're going to buy the state media, and then my friends will buy the rest of the media. And so just like a frog boiling, they're not a democracy anymore. It's an amazing thing. But the state sponsor Ferencváros to the tune of 80 million in the last 14 years. So
I wasn't aware of that at all, I have to say.
That may be a question coming, which he'll be thrilled to receive, I would think. So we'll touch it down tomorrow and see how the game goes this evening. We had our first of many, I think, GA broadcasting furore of 2025. This is all a bit tiresome, isn't it?
Especially when it's like, just go on. Sorry, give the background here before we all wearily give our verdicts.
But stay tuned, everyone.
Mine is particularly weary.
I don't even want to talk about it. I just thought I felt obliged. Here's the good news. 30,000 people are going to go and watch Limerick Cork in the Allianz Hurling League on Saturday. And the bottom line now is that TG Ceathair will stream the match. So on their player and on their app and their website, coverage begins 5 minutes before throw-in, 7:30. As with all these things, at a glance, it's like, well, that's a disgrace. And then you get into the details and you can understand how things go the way they go. So basically, TG Ceathair picked Donegal Dublin. Maybe that was the original sin. They picked Dublin against Donegal over Cork Limerick. Is that a fair choice if you're TG Ceathair? Is that the right choice? Jim McGuinness unveiling, whatever it is he's about to unveil.
Yeah.
I know in Championship, when the broadcasting wasn't now the broadcasting is unique to RTE plus GA Go, but RTE will always pick Munster hurling over everything else. So it's interesting that TG Ceathair have gone the other way there.
Yeah.
Because I know it's not Munster Championship, but it's a Munster matchup, and it basically is.
Well, then what happened is RTE said, all right, we'll take Limerick Cork. But then the rules are Limerick Cork's on the same time as the TG Ceathair match between Donegal and Dublin. You can't go up against each other. That's in the contract. So then they said to Cork and Limerick, well, if you bring this match a couple of hours earlier, we'll show it on RTE. And Cork GA said, yeah, but Ireland England's on. And so RTE said, oh, really? Ireland England? Yeah, Ireland England's on. So we're not clashing with that. So we're staying 7:30. And RTE therefore had to pick the 5:30 game, or the 6 o'clock game between Armagh and Tyrone.
Great game.
Yeah. So that's how it kind of, so you can just see how it kind of happened. Do we have any problem with Cork GA being modern enough to say Ireland, England are playing in the rugby?
Do you know what? I'm delighted they did, and I'm delighted at the people who showed their hand by saying, well, why would they care about,
this thing a million people are going to watch.
Yeah, there has to be an element in the GA, and it does not come easily to them to take into account non-GAA events.
And they'd heard it was on Virgin. People will want the post match.
Yeah. But no, like for a long time the GA were quite happy not quite happy, but there was always this kind of reluctance to make any exceptions or any allowances for what might be on in the rest of the world of global
There was
sport.
almost a certain relish in we don't.
Yeah, totally. And it's good that they're more aware of that. And in fairness, they have been for a while. But when it's as localised as a county board, as opposed to central council or whatever, that the people are a little bit more aware. Because the thing about it is, Limerick and Cork served up two of the greatest hurling games I can ever remember only last year, and they're going to have another cracker this weekend, and they're going to get a load of people in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and that place, since it's been built, has never been full once. Do you know what I mean? Like it's one of those great white elephants. Like, what are you going to do when you rebuild Páirc Uí Chaoimh? Of course, we're going to make it a big, huge stadium. Do we fulfill it for hurling and football matches? Never. So the bit more matches where you can push the 30,000 barrier or whatever, the better, because it is really good, particularly at night time, particularly for hurling matches. So maximising the attendance there, and despite what people say, there's no financial incentive to maximise attendance there for Cork GA. Gate receipts go back to Central Council. That's how that works. But obviously, more people that are there, there's more concessions and everything else that are going on, and that Colm Keys said something on the Mayo podcast last week about the lack of promotion for the start of the leagues, and he was totally right, and there was a lot of activity around it. between the kind of blanket secrecy that comes from the teams themselves and the sort of ambivalence from the GA generally that they need to somehow push this. This is a great event. Cork against Limerick. Limerick's first game of the season. Lots of question marks around them. Cork are a lot of people's tips for the All-Ireland. There's a lot to this game that is going to be worth tuning into and going to and talking about and reacting to. And I think it's just as well that as many people can do that as possible, because unfortunately, the way the leagues are, there's so many games. You can have brilliant games and brilliant events that just pass you by without giving it. We even know from a media point of view, like we only have so many people who can go to the games, and if you've got 10 games that are worth covering on the weekend, you can still only cover 5. So my view on this is that the Cork County Board have made the absolute right decision here.
You remember the first Cork Limerick game? So many games now where I'm getting lost. But that one was on GA Go, and it felt to me, because I'm always being told about what a white elephant Páirc Uí Chaoimh is, and it's a saddle. It's just. And then it just arrived that day. I felt like there was that amazing angle behind Patrick Horgan's penalty, and this amphitheatre just looked amazing. Like
Have you been?
Such an amazing stadium. Yeah, I've been once for sport and then once for a concert, and the usual precursors for Páirc Uí Chaoimh, like it's difficult to get in and out of. But once you're there, it's an amazing venue, and yeah, I think it's going to look spectacular at the weekend. So it's good that more than the people in there can actually see it.
I was there. The only time I've been there was for work, was for Munster, South Africa.
Oh, right.
Geez, they're not joking about it's hard to get in.
Oh, yeah.
Dave McIntyre and I were driving in, and we just came around the bend and we saw the stadium, and I thought, grand.
We're there.
And then we just stopped moving. I thought, okay. And we kept on not moving. And then I said to Dave, we're getting a bit tight here. And he's like, it's really slow, but like it's okay, kickoff's not too late. I was like, I'm fucking on air at 7. I had to get out and run. I ran. And the guard gave me a lift in his private car.
That's incredible. That's
I ran all the way along the Lee, took the left, because you have to do a big U shape.
Yeah.
And I ran.
And it's one way as well.
And I'm there, and I get around, and I thought, oh God, I have to go all the way back. And there was a guard at a roundabout, and I said, what's the quickest way to get there? And he's like, you seem a bit stressed. He knew I was. And I was like, yeah, I've really got to get there. And he was like, right, go on. Jerry, back in a minute. And he opened his car. He drove me to the doors. Gent.
Well, it's one of those places almost mythical. Like, so I know like people who from Dublin and who are very passionate about Dublin football, who were there on all the great days, like in the 70s and in the recent decade just gone. But my own father would tell you that the greatest day he ever had following the Dublin footballers was the 83 semi-final replay when Cork took them down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And part of it was because it was like this epic expedition. Like, I mean, the match may have been Timbuk 3, like, do you know what I mean? It was that far away. And even when they got to Cork, it was the same thing. The lads were having a couple of pints, looking across at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, thinking, well, we'll be there in no time. And most of them sort of missed some of the action in the first half as well.
I don't know, build another bridge or something.
Yeah.
Killian says, correct me if I'm wrong, but have you now gone a whole week without mentioning the retirement of Conor McManus? Easily one of the greatest footballers of the last 10 to 15 years, one of the greatest never to win an All-Ireland. The Monaghan disrespect continues, says Killian. He's not wrong.
Oh.
We never mentioned it.
In my defence, I'm only here once a week.
Yeah. In my defence, I said it was good that Monaghan were kicked out of Division 1. Made it better.
But in true Conor McManus style, he announced it on Friday evening. Just
a real taking out the trash moment.
Yeah. So
a joy, a real phenomenon.
Spectacular player, yeah.
Maybe he's got a kicker on the run. Like there's some guys that are such good kickers that would have to kind of like get a bit of separation from their marker. But Conor McManus endured into that era of being double marked, and like not just double marked, but in this really sort of zonal space where there is no space. But his ability to kick on the run was the thing that really marked him, because he literally from the ball to his hand with not a whole pile of backlifts, he was an incredibly sort of dexterous kicker with his right foot.
Yeah, amazing. We will invite him into studio for a chat.
And he could derive an angle. Jamie Clark was kind of similar as well from the wrong side, so there's a famous point against Tyrone from the sideline which everybody has seen, but he did that routinely where he's at what seems a very tight angle but he's hitting it over the black spot and you're like, how did he even do that? So that always struck me. Like some players can do it. He did it regularly.
Yes, I listen. I have no problem with that. A right-footed kicker on the right-hand side. If they can, slice one over, a bit of left to right spin, it's a beautiful thing. Kieran McDonald style on the opposite side.
Yeah, but instep.
But to instep, to curl that, to start that wide of the near post, and swing it in is a very special.
Remember Stephen O'Neill, Tyrone Stephen O'Neill scoring 2 points against Kildare in a league game. One of them he sent Peter Kelly with a dummy solo. But then the other one was it with the inside of his right foot as well, that he didn't have to do quite as much to get away from his marker, but the finish itself was absolutely off the charts. Like the idea that you're going to hang the ball up with your right foot at an angle, like it's basically travelling along the end line before you're running the risk of the ball going out of play before it goes over the ball.
Yeah. So Conor McManus, we salute you. Monaghan, we love you. Just to mention, by the way, the PGA Tour in golf is trying to somehow crank itself into gear, just even grab a scintilla of the spotlight away from TGL perhaps. With the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, all the big boys are there, just 80 players, no cut, $20 million of prize money. McIlroy, Lowry, Scotty Scheffler after injuring his hand on a wine glass, was it?
Yeah.
Cut himself.
Yeah, I was about to say it's the most interesting thing Scotty Scheffler's ever done.
Not really.
We don't give him any credit for the fact that he got sort of arrested the morning of a major for assaulting a police officer.
That'll get you.
So he's back.
Yeah, this is all usually the one, like back in the good old days of pre 2 years ago, the Pebble Beach Pro-Am was the one that you were always sort of oblivious to the hype around it because you didn't care because it was a Pro-Am. But at that stage, you'd had a couple of decent tournaments, whereas this year we haven't had any sort of a feel. Like I was looking at the schedule there the other day just to see at what stage I'm going to start paying attention to golf again. And like it's not until they go to Bay Hill, sort of the first weekend of March, that you're going to get a particularly good field.
TGL this week.
Brilliant.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Fair responses. Just briefly, I just want to see, because we talked at its launch, and this was the third episode, what do we call it? Is it match?
Well, it's the third week, but one of the week had 2 nights. It had a Monday and Tuesday, so I think it was...
I haven't been much now. So this thing isn't really, I don't think, grabbing people. But this was Tiger versus Rory. Tiger's Jupiter team won in a playoff. They have a pitch off, like a closest to the pin pitch off.
Do they, yeah?
And it was generally considered to be the best offering. I watched the highlights. It seemed grand. Where are you in this? Briefly.
I was finished with it after the first night.
I know you were. But did this reignite some love?
No, and then like against myself, I watched the second week because Tiger was on it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, well, if I can't get into this with Tiger, I'm never going to get into this ever. And then against myself, I watched some of the highlights back from this.
Okay.
And like, if it's not going to grab you with Tiger and Rory, and it's funny, you kind of can see the first few weeks the players were like taking crap shots and kind of shrugging it off and saying, well, what do you want? But like Tom Kim left himself in the bunker after he took a shot, had to take 2 shots out of the bunker, and you could see it's kind of like, I can't believe I'm doing this on Tiger Woods' team, Like you can actually see the effect that he has on the players around him. And I think Rory, as he tends to do, threw himself into it and, looked like he was in a fairly serious competition. But
well, I would hope part owner Rory McIlroy did take it seriously.
But the banter is rubbish, and it's just it's a bit too live. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you're taking the stuff in live and they don't know where the kind of audio feed is coming from, and like the mics go hot, the live mics go hot, but they obviously don't know what they're going to say. It doesn't work.
That's a pity, isn't it? Tom McKibbin, meanwhile, has gone official. He's gone steady with John Ram, so he's joined Legion 13 LIV Golf, 22 years of age, giving up his chance to play the PGA Tour this year. So that news has come through. We're pretty much done. This is just a short and sweet. We're all tired after the ambassador situation. Emails in very quickly. Indosportpodcast@independent.ie. Not reading out enough emails, I feel. Another mailbag edition might be in order. Lots of emails in. So Charlie caught my eye when he said, this email is not intended for the airwaves.
Okay.
So he said, this is like a bullet point email. I like it. I meant to send you a welcome and congratulations early on in the podcast, but I didn't sit down and do it.
Okay.
Anyway, I've listened to every episode now and I've enough things to talk about in one email. So here we go. Firstly, subscribing to the YouTube channel, it's absolute hell. As advertised by ye, I'm now subscribed to an Indonesian channel, as well as Irish Independent itself. I don't even watch on YouTube. Secondly, Vardial, I was calling him Gorvidal more than anything. He said, Joe, come on. You think with names like Alareza, Yana and Kabosh in the league, you'd be able to get in Vardial. It was driving me mad until the recent email correction. Anyway, you're forgiven. And then he says, congrats, well done. I have started going out with a girl who's studying in Derry, and I now save up at least 3 episodes of the pod for the guts of the drive up. And his favourite Gore Vidal quote, we then started reading out Gore Vidal quotes, is, a narcissist is simply someone who's better looking than you are. All the best. I won't give out his name.
That's good.
Yeah. And then other YouTube issues. I'm having similar issues with the YouTube channel, but no one can find our YouTube channel. It's Conan's fault.
Right.
I've searched and searched and searched. I can't find a channel, only a playlist, which you can't subscribe to. You can only save it. And somebody else said, I want to give a pity subscribe to the Derry fella. That's Conan. But I'm having difficulty. When I press subscribe on your videos, it subscribes to the Irish Independent YouTube, not the Indo Sport one. Love the show, especially Bits and Bobs. The highlight of my working day is when a new episode pops up on Spotify at 8 a.m, Mike in Vancouver. So look, the YouTube thing. It's very easy when you know how, but just to say, open the YouTube page and in the search section, put in at Indo Sport Podcast.
One word.
All one word. At Indo Sport Podcast, and we'll come up. Conan with his lofty ambitions for 1,000 subscribers in a year, which, by the way, would bankrupt the whole publication.
Yeah.
We're at 638.
Yeah.
Even with this thing being unfindable.
That's 63.8% of his target.
Yes.
Well, I have a big long drive to Castlebar on Sunday, so I'm going to have to go through the back catalogue to
Oh, yeah.
keep me amused all the
Did
way
you listen
down.
to our Detroit Lions one?
Yeah.
That was. I'm trying to think of timeless ones.
We did curse them, but it was well received.
Yeah.
We did. I liked our FIFA one. Did you?
I listened to it at the time, yeah. It was
Oh,
good,
okay. That's all I've got.
yeah. So too.
Sorry.
Just to mention for ease of access, in the description of this podcast, wherever you're listening to it,
Oof.
we'll put the YouTube link in there.
Okay.
Just click on that.
So surely you'll find us. Anyway, just to mention. A few emails in about the YouTube.
You're welcome, Conan.
Yeah, doing his job for him. We done anything? Is there anything glaring missed?
That's it. Just
That's it.
keep an eye out for the Martin Johnson, Keith Wood nostalgia chat on Monday.
Monday. Bank holiday Monday.
Yeah.
If we do a Bits and Bobs, I keep hearing a lot of people say to me, Connor's a good musician. We might get you to play a little something. Play Ireland's Call for us, the Bits and Bobs. Summer evening rooftop get together.
Have you ever heard of dartitis?
What's that?
Where you like.
So you're trying to throw a dart and something in your mind.
Oh, it's the
triggers-
yips.
Yeah, it's the yips for darts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think if Connor tried to attempt to play that song, his hands would just not work.
No, I'd actually end up kind of going all the way around the far side and becoming obsessed with it and then playing it the whole time.
There's more going
He's
on in this
picking
than
it
you
apart.
realise. Yeah.